Will Texas A&M end up with a top 5 2025 recruiting class?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk today a little bit about this 2025 recruiting class, kind of discuss where we're at the moment. And, once again, I think you got to feel pretty good about where this class sits currently. And I think the chances of finishing top 5 are definitely there with the base you've laid before, the summer. Obviously, July into June, beginning of July, those are the whole month of July, honestly, leading up to signing day here in a little while. But that is the most important part for recruiting, couple months for recruiting. Right now, we are in these crucial months for recruiting. So, I expect Texas A&M, you're currently sitting at 14 commits. I expect that number by the end of July to be up 6, 7, 8 guys. I think you're going to see this class really jump. I think you're going to see a lot of guys commit. You're going to see a lot of guys pick Texas A&M over the next few months. And you got to remember, I think that currently where you're at right now, ranked 9th with 14 commits, you're at a great spot before we even get into the month of July. So it feels like this recruiting class can be special if you hit it out of the park in July. I think that's all it's going to take is just a solid month of July to have a really good recruiting class. So I think that's what you got to do. Now, looking at the class, we're going to kind of run through what we got, what we need. So you have, once again, 14 current commits in this class. You have your quarterback, Hassan Longstreet, the 5-star. He just won MVP of a camp, and it sounds like he's playing some good football right now, getting ready to head into his senior season. But, looking at this, I don't know how you don't feel good about your quarterback of the future. I think that okay, I'll tell you this, and this is something Brian Smith, the Locked On recruiting expert, says all the time, and he always tells me, if you land your quarterback early, it puts you in a really good spot to land some offensive weapons. 5-star receivers want to play with 5-star quarterbacks. So I think knowing that you've already landed your quarterback of the class and you're in a really good spot there, I think it's really exciting. I think it's a good thing to know that you've got your guy at quarterback, because you have to have a quarterback in every class, and you have to have a good one. You'd rather have a good quarterback than a not good one. And I think you got a really good one here in Hassan Longstreet, who's going to be the future of the position. Once Connor Wegman's gone and Jalen Henderson and Marcel Reed are gone, it's Hassan Longstreet time, and I think he's going to be a really good player. And you never know. I mean, I'm not his freshman year, but his sophomore year, it's, let's say Marcel Reed's heading into his senior year. Could Longstreet, as a sophomore, give him a run for his money? Maybe. They're both talented players. We just have to see who develops better, and that'll be interesting. But so in the class currently, only have one quarterback. You're not going to go get another quarterback. You got your guy. You have one running back in the class currently, and that is DeAndre Ryden. And remember, you needed a running back. You didn't take one last cycle. You needed a running back in this class, and a good one, and you got exactly that with a guy who's ranked. Let's see what Ryden's ranked in the class. He's a top 300 guy, ranked 252nd. When you watch film on him, I still think that's a little, he should be ranked higher than that. He's a really good player. But so you've got your running back, another position. I mean, if you wanted to take 2 because you didn't take any last cycle, I get it, but I think you'd be happy with the guy you've got. And then if push comes to shove, you just go get a young running back with upside in the portal or something like that. But I think you got to feel pretty good about that position and where you're at with the running back position. Wide receiver, you don't have any receivers yet. So, looking at that, they're going to come. Texas A&M's in a good spot with some really solid receivers in this class. The receivers are going to come. There's no question there. There's no debate there. We know that's going to happen. But I think that you've got to use hey, look, we've got our quarterback. You've got to use that as a selling point to some of these talented receivers in this class. And once again, I'm not concerned. I mean, there's a lot of position groups, not a lot, but there's one other that's empty currently. But the receivers are going to come. I'm not concerned about it right now. I'm not worried about it. I love that, once again, I said a minute ago, you have your quarterback, because that will lead to having your quarterback will lead to these receivers wanting to play at Texas A&M. And listen, you've got, as I said, you've got some guys set up. You've got some visits. You've got some receivers. You're in their top 5 and this and that. And some guys you've got a really good shot to land. So I'm pretty confident that I'd say hopefully by the end of the month of July, you've got some really talented receivers as part of this recruiting class. Then in the offensive line, you've got 5 guys currently committed. You've really hit that position out of the ballpark. And I believe it's 3. Yeah, 3 of them are tackles, 2 of them are interior guys. Jonte Newman, Marcus Garcia are your higher ranked offensive tackles. Then Tyler Thomas is a guy who, there's a lot of upside there. Like the frame, it's about 6'5", 317 pounds. So, another upside play there. Connor Carty's another guy, not ranked as high, but interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 290. Got room to put more on that frame, and I think he's gonna be a really good player. So, how many more offensive linemen do you go get? That'll be interesting. I mean, as I always say, if you wanted to go get a few more, I will never be upset about signing offensive linemen. Never, ever, ever upset about going to get more offensive linemen. So, you go get a couple talented tackles. I'm not going to yell at anybody. I'm going to tell you that much. So, tight end, you've only got one, and it is the Aggies' most recent commit, Coyote Armstrong, another dude, he's ranked 76th in the class, top 100 dude, high upside play, versatile player. I mean, he can play anywhere on the field pretty much. You could probably even stick him at quarterback. I mean, he's just a really athletic, talented guy, and I think he's going to be a special player. Defensive line, you've only got one defensive lineman currently, and that is Landon Rank. Landon Rank, another guy who's just a really high upside dude. I like his frame because I think you can go multiple different directions with him as a player. I think you can pick. There's lots of different things he can do. And, he's got that 6'2", 280 frame. You can put weight on him and he can play tackle. You could stick him out at end if you get him to 6'4", 270, you can put him out at end. There's lots you can do with him in that frame. It's one of those frames where you can go down, you can go up, and whichever way you go, you're putting yourself in a good spot. Linebacker, you've still only got one linebacker currently committed. That's Kevion Riggins, and another guy, high upside, a player who needs to be ranked higher than he is. And it's pretty crazy to me that that Riggins is ranked where he is, because he's a really, really good player. Corner, you got 4 guys currently committed at corner, and all 4 of them are ranked in the top 250. You've got John Petaway ranked 244th. You've got Jamar Beal Goins ranked 181st. Kobe Sellers ranked 134th. And then Adonis Curry ranked 42nd overall. 4 top 250 corners. I talk about this all the time. It's a position where you did a great job reloading it in the portal, but you're still going to have to go get some guys in this class, because while there are some young guys that you got in the portal, it's a lot of older guys as well. So you have to rebuild this position, and I think that they're doing just that by bringing in 4 top 250 recruits at this position. And then at safety, nobody currently, that's the only position except for receiver that there's nobody currently. But once again, I'm not worried about the staff filling this up. So right now, I'd say the biggest, and it's not concern, but it's the biggest position you got to go get some players, is receiver. I think you got to hit this receiver class out of the ballpark. You got to go get some really, really good guys. So I'm anxious to see how that works. But yeah, go get some talented receivers. This class has a legit chance of being top 5 if you hit the month of July out of the ballpark. So that's all you got to do. Hit July out of the ballpark, you can have a top 5 class in Elko's first actual personal recruiting class, which would be really awesome to see. We're going to talk about the offensive line. Where is it ranked in the SEC? 24/7 Sports tells us. And then we talk about what different combinations at offensive line make the most sense. Is one better than the other? We'll have those conversations coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Listen, Game Time is the only place to go buy tickets for sporting events. You know, I'll tell you this. We were going to go to a baseball game tonight, me and my buddies. We ended up, we're not going to go to the lake, that works. Not complaining about that. But was looking at tickets. I was, of course, on Game Time looking at prices. My buddy was on another app looking at prices, and he texted me and said, "Oh, look, I found these really good tickets for this number." And I texted back and I said, "Yeah, I'm looking at Game Time. Those like same tickets are like way cheaper." I will never purchase a ticket anywhere other than Game Time. I absolutely love the app. I love how easy it is to use. I love the prices. They're in the business of saving people money. You know, there's nothing worse. We all love going to these events, going to sporting events, going to whatever, comedy, theater, whatever you want to go to, a concert. You don't want to pay an arm and a leg. And Game Time wants to save you money. And that's what I love about it. That's why it's the only place I will ever buy tickets for the rest of my life. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So I want to talk about the offensive line. 24/7 Sports just put out a list ranking the top offensive lines in the SEC, or ranking, all of the offensive lines in the SEC. And the Aggies fell at 9th. And I'll tell you this, I think that's fair. And because I think it has, the upside is like maybe 6. I don't know if I believe the upside of this offensive line is super high. But I think that, once again, what I have said for months, for weeks, for years, for centuries on this show is, if you have a top 10 offensive line in the SEC, I'd love to maybe be that 8 toward your top half. I think that might be all it takes, for this unit to just be serviceable, not elite. You want it to be not a problem. I don't want to have to do a post-game show here in a few months and talk. I don't want to ever have to say anything with the offensive line, because when the offensive line is playing well, you're not talking about it. And that's the reality here. I don't want to have to be talking about the offensive line. And, that's why I look at this and I say to myself, okay, if the offensive line can be a top half unit in the SEC, I think that is beyond serviceable. So let's read the blurb around this. It says, with 3 starters back and a collective depth chart, first-year head coach Mike Elko feels good about. The Aggies are cautiously optimistic their wall of blockers will perform this fall. Texas A&M must protect Connor Rigman, given his injury history, and making room for a top-end arsenal of running backs would make things much easier on their potential first-round pick signal caller. Third-year tackle Trey Zune and junior center Mark Naboo are 2 of the best in College Station and leaders within the room. So I agree with all that. And looking at this, I mean, just when you break down this offensive line, and I want to hit this point home one more time before I talk about some of these combinations, but it's just, I think that you've got to give Connor Rigman time and create holes for these running backs. It doesn't have to be dominant. I would absolutely love for this offensive line to be fully just dominant, just push people around, no nonsense. You are just pushing opposing defensive linemen around or linebackers, whatever. You're pushing them around and you're getting a ton of movement. That'd be great. But once again, I don't think that's necessary. It would be great, but I don't think it's necessary for the success of this team. I think that you just need this offensive line to get the job done. And I believe they can do that. I believe that this offensive line can do what we need it to do to be a good football team. But that's going to be really important because once again, if this offensive line does not do that, I think it's going to cause losses. I think it could cause injuries to your players. There's a lot that could happen if this offensive line is not serviceable. So I think that there's two offensive line combinations that make the most sense to me. And somebody commented this yesterday, talking about Reuben Fothery. And, I think these are the two combinations that you can really play around with. So the first being Trey Zune at tackle, left tackle, Bisontis at right tackle. Then you have Colley at center, Mark Naboo probably at right guard, and Armaj Adams at left guard. I think that is the first option. And I like that option, but I also don't dislike the option of Trey Zune at left tackle, Reuben Fothery at right tackle, Armaj Adams at left guard, Chase Bisontis at right guard, and Mark Naboo at center. I think both of those options are very realistic. We didn't get to see Fothery last year. He was banged up. We didn't get to see what he had to offer. I mean, you got to remember, Fothery has a massive frame, and hopefully Coach Cushing was able to develop him, and he's gotten better, and maybe he can be great this year. But I really like the upside of Bisontis, and I believe we talked about his frame yesterday. What was it, 6'6", 320, I believe, or something like that. I mean, he has tackle upside. I think that people are starting to get set in stone about him making that move to guard. And if he does, I'm fine with that. Like I've said, I'm not saying like, no, do not bring Bisontis into guard. I will riot. I'm not saying that. All I am saying is that when I look at this, I believe that Bisontis can play out there. He has tackle upside. I think he has tackle upside at the next level. And you got to remember, he was a freshman last year. So was he perfect? No, he wasn't perfect. Was he good? Yeah, he was good. I think he wasn't perfect. He could have been better. But I think knowing that he was a true freshman out there playing offensive tackle in the SEC, you got to tip your cap to what he did. So, that's kind of my take on Bisontis. Either of those combinations, I'm fine with. I really am. Now, if there's a player that y'all that I didn't mention in one of these combinations that you think makes sense, let me know in the comments. And I don't want to talk about anybody else because I want to see what y'all have to say about it. I want to see what y'all think about other combinations than what I have. I have a real feeling that one of those two combinations will end up being the starting offensive line. But you do have some other talented players in this room that could work their way into the starting lineup. So let me know in the YouTube comments y'all's thoughts on that. Is there another combination you like? And then just also, like, do you believe if Texas A&M's offensive line finishes ranked like 7th, 8th, or 9th in the SEC, like when it comes to just power rankings, how good they are, do you think that's good enough to help this team win some football games? So let me know those things in the YouTube comments because, once again, the offensive line is a huge question mark about this team. And if it ends up being better than we hope and expect, I think that you're putting yourself in a really good spot to overachieve this year. All right, let's talk about the Tennessee Volunteers baseball team. Let's break it down. The Aggies are getting ready to play for a national championship. Let's talk about it coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. So, the Aggies are getting ready to face the Volunteers in Omaha in a best-of-3 series to see who's going to take home a national championship. Now, of course, this game is coming up. The first game is coming up on the 22nd. The second game being on Sunday, the 23rd, and then the if necessary game on Monday. So Tennessee digs the long ball, right? They have 7 players with 10 homers, similar to Texas A&M. Texas A&M hits a lot of home runs. The Aggies hit a lot of homers. I mean, that's just these two teams like to hit homers. So you've got to know that. 7 players, 10 home runs, 4 with 20 or more. You've got one in Christian Moore who's got 33. He's also hitting like 384. So watch out for him. He's a great player. But, to me, when you're facing a team like this that hits a lot of homers, as a pitching staff, that tells me one thing. You have got to live on the corners. You can't miss middle. You can't hang off speed pitches because they will leave the ball yard, potentially the stadium, with a team like this. You've got to be very, very careful with where you throw pitches. You cannot hang anything. That's my number one from looking at stats from watching this Tennessee team play, probably 6 or 7 games this year. I think that they, obviously they hit a lot of home runs on mistakes, as good baseball teams should. You should hit home runs on mistakes. That's, kind of what you're supposed to do. I mean, when pitchers make mistakes, you're supposed to take advantage of them. And this Tennessee team does that very well. So, that is something that this pitching staff has got to do. You've got to hit spots. Their pitching staff, so they've got Xander Sechrist, who has a 3.22 ERA, really good numbers there. He's a good pitcher. And then you've got AJ, I believe it's Casey. That's their guy. Now, Florida State hit him around the ball field a little bit. I think he gave up 5 earned in like an inning and a half or 1.2 inning or something like that. But I believe he has 120 strikeouts in like 80 innings. So he's going to strike out a lot of guys. It was a bad outing. Bad outings happen, but you got to know this dude can spin it. So you got to be careful with him. You got to know when you see a pitcher like that strikes a lot of guys out, you have got to sit on your pitch, see it early, and punish it. I've always, when I was playing ball, if we were going against a really good pitcher who struck out a lot of guys, I would always hunt first pitch fastball. Pitchers like that love to get across a first pitch fastball, and you got to know there's a really good chance that first pitch fastball is the best pitch you get the entire at-bat. And if you don't punish it, you seriously could not get another good pitch the rest of the at-bat. So on a guy like that, I would hunt first pitch fastball. Then they've got Drew Beam, another really solid arm, another solid starter. I mean, this is, once again, I believe that Texas A&M and Tennessee are the 2 best teams in all of college baseball. Without, with a hobbled Jason Laviolette and and obviously no Montgomery after the foot surgery, I think that Tennessee has a narrow edge. But I believe that it's baseball and absolutely anything can happen. You'd love to have Shane Sado and Montgomery out there. You really would. You feel a lot better about your chances here. But once again, you got to put that all aside. You got to put it behind you and say, hey, we are 2 wins away from a national championship. So that's kind of my thoughts on Tennessee. They hit a lot of homers, a lot of great hitters. And they're not like, their home run hitters are average hitters too. They're not just hitting homers. They're not hitting homers batting 227. They're hitting homers batting 350. So really good lineup and a solid pitching staff. I'm more scared of the lineup than I am the pitching staff, but still, their staff, aside from that first game against FSU where they came back and won in the 9th, their staff has been great so far in Omaha. So you got to know that. Solid staff, really dominant lineup. Pitchers got to hit spots. And hey, let's go win the dang thing. Win a national championship. Ladies and gentlemen, we will break down this as it goes down. We'll have more coverage on the national championship for you this weekend. Hopefully, they win it in 2 games, and we're talking about on Sunday evening a national championship. But we'll see. Support this team. Really exciting. Looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Going to be a fun weekend of baseball. I can't wait. I know y'all can't as well. But that's going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. Really, really appreciate you. Hope everybody has an outstanding weekend. Enjoy this baseball team. Support this team. Get up to Omaha if you're not already there. And we will see you on Monday.